Millions are dead!
Alright, what's on your mind?
Yeah, we totally didn't just do the podcast and then like the voices didn't record and now we're redoing it again. Yeah.
Professionalism.
Yeah, Zanagoth. The very depressed person. Everyone probably expects me to talk about raids, but I'm not gonna do that. Reversal of expectations.
Disappointed like half the audience right
now. Reversal of expectations. Nah, I'll talk about raids later. But like I started off the earlier recording, I was saying that, you know, the state of Warframe is such a mess because I think a year ago I wrote a bunch of like video scripts on Warframe's problems. I think I had like 3 or 4 of them. Some of them talked about Endgame, some of them talked about Rivens, some of them talked about balance. But the more I wrote those scripts, which I eventually abandoned, I realized that everything in Warframe is interconnected. Like, you can't talk about one thing without it leading into another problem. And then you just feel like, at a certain point, you feel like you're rambling for hours on end. Just because one thing leads to another, and then, you know, that's kind of how Warframe is right now. There's just so many problems.
Railjack, which was supposed to be interconnected.
Yeah. Railjack. But yeah, I was saying earlier, like, you can't talk about something like Rivens without going into like how Warframe is balanced. Because if you want to talk about like Rivens, you realize it's like this capstone on a pyramid. At least that's how it was intended to be. But right now the situation is more like it's one block on a really shaky Jenga tower, and you can't like adjust anything beneath it. You can't adjust the foundations of the game without completely fucking up things up top. Like, yeah, if you want to nerf multi-shot now, have fun with that. You nerf multi-shot, you kill off like 80% of the God Roll Riven market. Just because...
Or do what they were talking about way in the past, where they said they were considering making it so multi-shot consumes more ammo or something like that.
Yeah, any kind of nerf would just destroy the market. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, I used to think DE wouldn't destroy the market, but after what they did with Prime Chamber, you know, the gloves are off.
Meme. Just sitting in the corner watching the Riven Mafia lose their shit. And
yeah.
It's funny because several people have told me that DE, most notably Rebecca, DE got notified that the Riven Mafia was actually a thing, besides that time when someone tried to take down Semlar's Riven bot, which made Riven marketing a lot more easier.
Yeah.
But without going into too much detail, because it's a fucking shit show, there's like an actual Riven conspiracy. As stupid as it sounds, there actually is. And Rebecca got shown all that with proof and shit, and she's like, yeah, this is like some personal harassment level shit. So she's like, fuck that, and so the Riven market is the shit show it is today.
Here's the thing, like, I know the Riven Mafia is a bit of a meme, but I do understand that there are people who actually like take the Riven market super seriously. But at the same time, it's kind of like DE's fault, because they want to profit off this really shitty elitist market, because they don't want to make Kuva rolling more deterministic. You know, I remember DE saying that, oh, we don't want to change Kuva rolling because it will devalue Rivens. I think Scott was the one who said it on the stream, if I'm not wrong. The exact words were, we will devalue Rivens. We don't want to devalue Rivens. And that was kind of a wake-up call for me, because it basically signaled that they were willing to keep the system shitty just so they could profit off it. Like, the Riven Mafia exists and the whole market is such a shit show precisely because DE wants it that way. You know, they are kind of complicit in the whole problem. Like, sure, the players behave like shit, but in a way it's because the situation has kind of shaped them into being like that. You know, it's as much of DE's fault as it is the Riven Mafia's fault. Like,
Yeah, so
just
if I ever
give.
die, if I ever say in a video that the Riven Mafia is fucking shit, next day they found me dead in a ditch with like 27 stab wounds, the Riven Mafia did it.
Yeah, but jokes on them. I want to die anyway. Anyway. No, but
We all
really,
do.
but seriously, like, you know, if DE really wants to stop the whole elitist market issue, they should like take more responsibility, because it's irresponsible to it's very irresponsible to profit off this market that moves like thousands of plat a day, and you know, not realize that it's also causing problems in like the wider dynamics of the market. But yeah,
Especially for whales.
yeah, the whaling problem in Warframe is, I don't know why people can
Like-
spend so much money on this game.
Like, I'll be honest, I'm one of those people who I have no problem spending like 3,000 platinum on one Riven mod if it means getting stupid damage. But even I have limits. Like, I'll never spend over 10,000 for one.
Yeah, but
It's stupid.
no, I think my issue with the Riven market especially is just that it's so volatile. You know, if DE changes one thing overnight, it could completely destroy the value of a Riven or Rivens.
Especially because
like
the
something
entire
you
disposition of Rivens
yeah, like
is
you
on
want to
meta.
spend 3,000 plat on something today. Like, who knows? In a week, in a month, in a year, DE could do something that just completely destroys the value of that item. And
Prime Chamber.
and when the value of items is so in flux, you know, there is no assurance of permanence. And I'm sure, you know, in a way that's good, but in other ways it's bad, because you don't know what you're paying for. You don't know what the real worth of an item is. You don't know whether something's just going to be taken from you the next day. And I think that's kind of a fear that the overall Warframe community lives under. You know, when something's fun, when something's good, or when something's meta, you don't know how long it'll last before DE is like, yeah, no fun allowed.
That's what they did with nullifiers.
Yeah. But, you know, going back to the topic of Prime Chamber, which I was talking about, like, the whole Barrow destroying the Plat Mafia. Yeah, I was saying earlier that I think DE could have handled it better. Like, they could have just made, because the base variant of Prime Chamber is just Charge Chamber, right? Things like 60% damage. And they could have just made Prime Charge Chamber and let Barrows sell that. Same exact stats as Prime Chamber, you know, but let Prime Chamber keep its status as a collector's item. Because for me, I kind of, as much as it sounds like a hot take, I kind of empathize with the people who collected Prime Chambers. I kind of empathize with like the whole collector's mentality of it. Because, you know, I do support Prime Chamber being more accessible to the rest of the public. You know, you shouldn't gate something like that behind this massive plat wall just because it's a collector's item. But at the same time, you know, I don't think DE really appreciates the value of collector's items in video games in general. Because like other games I play, you know, the developers tend to respect the nature of what's it called? The collector's items. Like I play Path of Exile, and let's just take for example, there's this item in Path of Exile called Calm's Heart. So the current variant gives you like 500 health and 20 to 40% increased fire damage. Whereas there was a legacy version of it which didn't give you any fire damage but gave you 1000 health. So the old version kind of still exists today, but in the standard league where everything migrates to after the league ends. The way Path of Exile does things is that every 3 months they make a new league, which is like a new ladder. Everyone starts from fresh. And so people who played in the past and got a 1000 life Calm's Heart still have that collector's item in their stash, you know, because every league, Grinding Gear Games, which is the developers of Path of Exile, they do balance changes, so they change the stats of items, but sometimes they don't change the stats of old items. So things like Calm's Heart retain the 1000 life, and that's still a collector's item, so people who played during that time still have it to look at, and it's not like it completely breaks the game, you know. No one really plays standard for one, but you get the idea. You know, collector's items have an inherent value that I don't think DE really understands, because time and time again DE has kind of like ruined the collector status of a lot of items. And I think that they could have handled it a better way. You know, Prime Charge
Personally,
Chamber.
I'm personally fine with collector's items as long as they don't like fuck up the meta or
Yeah.
anything like that, like Riven mods kind of have. But the thing is, I think the reason why a lot of people are kind of against the idea of collector's items, even if they don't really affect the game, besides how much of a shit show the Guides of Lotus was with the whole exclusive cosmetic thing, is because we don't really get many collector's items. Like, when we do, it's either a meme, like when they released the Great Prime years ago on the market for like 1 day, but it was on the market for like 9,000 platinum or something like that. And it was a joke weapon that existed, but it was a joke weapon, which technically made it a collector's item, but it was a joke weapon. Whereas other things like I don't know if you remember them, but arcane helmets, when they first came out, they gave like little bonuses, but also like little debuffs. Like one arcane helmet for Rhino, I think, was like a little bit more armor, but like a little bit less power strength. But then D eventually realized this system's kind of shitty and no one really cares about it. So then they introduced arcane enhancements, which was basically meant to replace arcane helmets. And now they're basically collector's items because arcane helmets, they still exist, but they're weaker than regular arcanes in every way possible. Not to mention that for balancing purposes, they also made it so if you have an arcane helmet equipped, it takes up an arcane slot, which could be used by something else like Guardian or Energize or Tanker or something better. So arcane helmets technically are collector's items. They're just shitty collector's items.
Yeah, I mean, unless you count the Volt one, because
That one's actually pretty decent.
the Volt one gives a power strength boost, which is a big deal over
Yeah.
like, you know, running, I don't know, Energize. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think the Prime Chamber issue was kind of not handled well. I mean, of course, right now the whole like funny circle joke is like, haha, look at these like pleb mafia losers who lost everything. But I don't know. There is that kind of like meta circle jerk kind of mentality in the Warframe community where like people take joy in the suffering of elitist people or people they perceive to be elitist, which sometimes kind of overshadows any like constructive criticism or like meaningful like discourse that could come out of it. Like I remember when raids got killed off, like a lot of people were celebrating just because they didn't like raids. It's like, hey, fuck the raid people, you know. It's just
If they were
like
a conclave, they were going to party an entire fucking server.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think you should necessarily let your hatred for certain things or certain communities blind you to the fact that sometimes there is a genuine problem. You know?
should tell that to AGGP. He would fucking murder you. Like, no, seriously, fucking his argument for grinding shit most of the time is, I'm a veteran and I had to grind this, so new players have to grind it too.
Yeah.
It's fucking stupid, honestly.
I think I made a tweet recently of I passed the 1,000 day login mark. You know, you get the armor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, according to AGGP, I'm a veteran now, because his idea of veterancy is like logging in or something.
That's so fucking stupid, because right now I'm at like 840 something days logged in, not because I don't play much, but because I have real shit to do in real life. Like last year I missed Plague Star twice, and I missed some other Fortuna event, I forgot what it was. I missed that because I was deployed, meaning basically I had no choice but to take care of IRL stuff, so I missed game time. So just because I have under 1,000 days, even though I'm master rank 29 and I have every single item in the game maxed, and I have literally 20,000 platinum worth of Riven mods, does that not make me a veteran just because I don't have 1,000+ days logged in? No, it's fucking stupid. In my opinion, being a veteran is completely fucking arbitrary because everyone has a different opinion. Like, for him, it might be days logged in. For me, it would be, do you remember the mod Marathon?
Yeah.
If you do, you're a veteran. That's how I see it.
Okay, like, alright, Yeah, going back to the thing we were discussing in like the scuff recording, one of the problems with Warframe is just that, there isn't really a definition for endgame. Everyone's idea of an endgame is different, and that's one of the whole problems of like trying to discuss balance and generally everything in Warframe, because everyone has this different idea of, everyone has a different definition of what an endgame is or what they perceive as challenging. And it's a problem because you can't even discuss these things properly because everyone has a different definition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like, some people think that, an endurance run for like 10 hours in the void is challenge, is
Life
endgame.
of Rio.
Some people think, some people think raiding is an endgame. Some people think, collecting plat is the real endgame. Some people think fashion frame is the endgame. As much as it was a community joke that DE took seriously, some people do think that way. Like, and that's kind of a problem when it comes to like discussing Warframe as a whole. It's just that there isn't really a definition of what endgame is, and therefore it's just like, if you look at how Warframe discusses things like on the Reddit or like on some of the forums and stuff, it's so disparate because everyone seems to be in their own bubble. Everyone seems to be arguing for their own sphere of understanding, just because like the game is so all over the place. And that's the other thing I was talking about, which is that balancing in Warframe is such a nightmare. I kind of empathize with DE because like there are the super casual players who struggle to do sorties or God knows what, and there are the super high end players who play the game like absolutely min-max to the ass and like destroy everything. And it's impossible to balance the game around one party without completely ruining the experience for the other party. Like the spectrum of gameplay in Warframe is so wide that you just cannot balance anything in a way that will not hurt someone else. And while I do feel bad for DE, that's kind of a situation that they've kind of driven themselves into. They dug themselves that hole, and and the whole dug themselves that whole sentiment kind of applies to a lot of things in Warframe. It's like, why are we in this situation? Because DE chose to go down this way,
Yeah, it's kind of like how Triburos pointed out in the last stream I did with him, that their only real way to get out is to artificially pump up the difficulty by jacking up the numbers to stupid levels, which is how you have just people running around with Nidus and Octavia and Mesa and Inaros just bullshitting their way through the game with high levels of survivability. Meanwhile, other Warframes like Nyx, even though she's a fucking meme at this point, get left behind just because they can't keep up with how, not high pace, but how stupid the game can be in terms of how much damage the enemies can deal and soak up.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like the quote-unquote high-end gameplay of the game is very boring and very cheesy. Because and this is something I want to talk about, which is how the way that Digital Extremes kind of approaches difficulty in Warframe. I don't know. To me, DE seems to think that difficulty equals scaling. At least that's the kind of vibe they give off with all their recent updates. They think that just turning a dial suddenly makes things harder. Like, oh, scale up the armor, scale up the health, scale up the damage, suddenly it's harder. No, it's not. It's, for someone like me who actually understands how the super top-end gameplay is played, which is just cheese the fuck out of everything, it feels like I'm staring at a wall of numbers. It's just either how can I kill everything before it kills me, or how can I stack so many advantages in my favor that I completely nullify the enemy scaling. It's one of the two, or a mixture of both. And that's the problem with if you see scaling as the only metric of difficulty, because it's not. I would much rather see difficulty in Warframe being addressed by mechanics, like you go to a certain area and the enemies there start having different attack patterns or different like abilities or stuff. And I'm not talking about like nullifiers, just haha fuck you can't use your abilities. I'm like talking like actually like telegraphed mechanics, you know. But again, that's hard to do within the context of Warframe, because I think a lot of the discourse in Warframe is also very limited by what people perceive to be difficulty. Like I don't know at what point the community kind of like bought into the whole idea that scaling equals difficulty, because it's not just a DE problem. Like the community believes in it as well. The community looks at simulacrum, oh look, this gun does big dick damage, therefore good, you know. And that's not the full story.
Brozime wants to know your location.
Oh, Brosim. Yeah, like I don't watch Brosim's content, but I don't hate him, you know.
Same.
Like the thing about Brosim is a lot of his content is like tier list, right? And I think especially you were saying the whole tier list about the Vauban pissed you off. Yeah.
Vauban C-, right, guys? Oh my fucking god.
No, but I think that's the thing I was discussing earlier, which is just that if you want to start a fight anywhere on the internet, just make a tier list. Like you'll start a fucking riot in the comments. People will fight tooth and nail. Like it started in Smash, and like it for ad infinitum, it will always be the case, because if you make a tier list, you will piss someone off. You know, the whole experience is so subjective. But at the same time, it's kind of like, in a way, it feels very arbitrary and it feels very pointless to try and like, you know, classify them into these things. But at the same time, one of the things I was talking about earlier was that when it comes to evaluating the value of like Warframes in the game, a lot of people seem to think of Warframes in like a vacuum. You know, people think of the value of a Warframe is like whether or not it's good solo. And that's not completely their fault, because the game has moved towards kind of like a more solo centric kind of playstyle, just because the caters to that. But
yeah,
you know, the game has, people think of the value of Warframes in the very narrow band where they are like, is it good in a solo? If it's not, throw it in the trash. And that's not necessarily true, because Warframe is a co-op game, you know. For me especially, because like sometimes I do exploits and stuff, or like I like to push the game to its limit. You know, the value of a Warframe is very different to me, because I see how it brings value to a team setting. Like for a lot of people, like for example Nidus, right? For a lot of people think Nidus is just, you know, the guy who just stomps on the ground non-stop and just builds stacks and can't die, because that's kind of his identity within like solo or group survival settings. He's a long-term player. But for me, I look at Nidus and I see the value in his parasitic link, which is like, is the only multiplicative strength buff in the game. And like that's something completely insane to me, because that's kind of the crux of a lot of exploit videos. I mean, I will admit, but at the same time, it's something interesting in a team setting that a lot of people overlook. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh shit! Fuck. Bug just crawled on my.
Oh.
No, bug just fucking scared me. Shit.
Yeah, but I don't know. I was talking about the whole the solo side of things, where Warframe is a weird case study where it's a co-op game that over the years has given players less and less reasons to play together.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It's weird because it's a co-op game that really discourages you from playing with your friends. Like after raids died off, all like 20 to 30 regular raiders on my like kind of personal server all quit the game, like eventually. And that's not normal, because like, you know, it's just, but like I was saying earlier, like, you know, people who tuned in to this podcast to hear me talk about raids, yeah, now you get your fix. When raids died, I think a lot of us in the raid group lost the motivation to play. Because like as cheesy as it sounds, raids was about the friendship.
Gay.
Yeah, it sounds super fucking gay, but that's kind of how it was. It's just, it was about the experience. Like looking back at Warframe raid design, it was fucking horrible. Like after playing Destiny 2 raids, like Last Wish or like Leviathan, I was like, holy fuck, how did I put up with Warframe's shitty raid design for so long? And yeah, as gay as it sounds, it was about the experience. It was really, at a certain point, it was about having an excuse to play with each other. And as ironic as it was, that was the time I spent the most money on Warframe because, this is something, if anyone from D is listening, this is important, okay? If you want to get me to spend money on cosmetics, make content I want to play. Because when I buy cosmetics, I do it so I can look good while playing content. I don't buy cosmetics just to look good. Okay? Let that be on the record. But
yeah, I've played this game mostly solo ever since I started playing in like 2015, 2016. And the only times I've ever felt like actually compelled to play with other people was, besides raids, like the few times I did raids, was every single time that some annoying boss was in sorties, like Faye Heck on Earth or Kayla the Thame on Rathum. Other than that, the only time I've really done co-op and actually felt like, oh shit, I need to play with other people was like the first 5 hours of Railjack. That was it. Otherwise, everything else was like, I could just do this solo. I don't care.
yeah, I don't know. Like people ask me a lot of time. It's like, oh, do you want raids? And if you go into my comment section, there's like always some raid related joke. Like
Unsurprising.
yeah, it's not surprising. It's like a running joke at this point. It's a bit tiresome at times, but whatever. And the thing about raiding is that people think I want raids back. Like whenever there's a mention of raids, people like tweet at me or like DM me. It's like, hey, are you excited for raids? And the answer is no, not really. Like I know that there's the whole Railjack raids thing that was kind of confirmed on Twitter by Rebecca recently. At the last dev stream of 2019. But at the same time, it's just like, that the kind of time and place for raids in Warframe is kind of come and gone. If you brought back raids tomorrow, I know this sounds a bit weird, but like, I wouldn't be able to play it. Not because of memories or whatever shit. It's just like, I can't find the people to play it with. All my friends have quit Warframe.
Unless you want to take the risk and go into
yeah, sure, I could build a fresh raid team from scratch, but that would take forever, and like the education process is so long and arduous. Because like, as elitist as this sounds, building a good raid team is a super long and arduous process. Because some people, they just, even if they're good players, they just don't mesh with the group dynamic. Like they don't like, their energy isn't the same as everyone else, and it's very awkward. And that's kind of the thing. Like some people have certain play styles that they really, really insist on having, and that doesn't really fit with the strategy sometimes. It's nothing personal. It's just how the game goes. And I think that's one of the things. It's like if you bring back raids now, if you look at the raid school bus, which used to host like multiple raids a day, multiple school buses like teaching people, that server is just completely fucking dead now. I think 80 to 90% of that server doesn't even play Warframe anymore.
They move on to Destiny or what?
All kinds of other games, but yeah, they have a Destiny channel now, and it's sometimes more active than the Warframe channels. That's how depressing it is.
It's fucking sad.
I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like raiding, the time and place for it has gone. Because Warframe has moved so far past cooperative gameplay, as ironic as it is for a co-op game. Warframe has moved so far away from that now trying to reintroduce raids would be weird. And amongst other things, like raids is kind of a low priority in my opinion. Like especially trying to build it on Railjack of all things, is just insanity
Yeah.
to me.
We're all half expecting Squad Link to be broken on arrival anyway.
It will be. It's not even expecting or not. It will be. It's just how broken it will be. That's kind of my. It's very pessimistic. It's very cynical. But that's how I feel about a lot of things in Warframe now. It's just, it's not a matter of whether it will be. It's a matter of how much it will be. And
It's part of the reason it's why that sentiment everyone has, like, oh god, how fucking bad will this update be? It makes me wish that DE would announce and like put out more like ways to input feedback, like the poll that Steve put out on Twitter. I really hope and wish that they would do more stuff like that in game where more people can see it, because the one thing I really don't like is how a lot of like developer interaction is on Twitter, and not many people use Twitter or even give a shit about Twitter, but they don't really translate any of that in game, because it's just my opinion, but the feedback that they got on the poll, which was basically just more content and fix the game, it would have been a lot more fix the game and a lot less more content if they put that poll out in game instead of Twitter.
yeah,
Because more
that's
people would
something
have
I
seen
never
it.
really understood.
Yeah,
It's
more
like,
people would have seen it, and it's ugh.
like, why are you polling people on a third-party site when you can just do it in-game?
Yep.
Like, you could just code a poll in-game when people log in, just to like ask them about their experience. I'm sure that's not super hard to do. You know, it would make more sense than to host it on a third-party site which only a very small percentage of the player base uses. You know, it's not it's not even an accurate like representation of the user base, because only certain people use Twitter, you know, and as much as it speaks to my behavior as well, you know, the people who use Twitter are usually the more outspoken people, and that's not necessarily how the overall player base feels, you know. And that's, I don't know. Well, what were the other things that we were talking about earlier that the recording got
Besides
wiped out?
raids and Rivens, I want to say we kind of touched on Liches.
Oh right, yeah, Liches. Yeah, I was complaining about Liches earlier, where, you know, Liches was supposedly inspired by Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor. Have you ever played those games? Oh,
Not much.
yeah, okay, so
I know like the fundamentals, but not much.
yeah, but the breakdown of like what made, because I really enjoyed Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor. You know, Shadow of War had the whole like loot chest fiasco that kind of dragged it down, but overall I still had fun in it. You know, if I ignore that aspect of the game. But overall, I think what made Shadow of War and Mordor fun was really the whole, there was actually a hierarchy to play through, you know, because you interrogate a thrall and then you get information on his higher up captain, and then you go after the captain you interrogate him, and then, you know, you get information on the lieutenant, and so on and so forth. There was an actual hierarchy to go through, whereas if you had to kind of illustrate that in the context of Warframe, it's kind of like stabbing goblins for 3 hours just to get to one orc captain, which is nothing like Shadow of War. It's not fun either. It's just mind-numbingly grind. Like, I'm not joking when I say I turn off my brain when I do murmur farms. Like, I just like go into this trance for 2 hours and just
I'm
like,
not gonna lie. Speaking of stupid farm, I'm not gonna lie. Every once in a while, I just wake up and I'm like, why the fuck did I do 1,000 Forma? Like, I honestly don't know how I got myself through that. Looking back on it now, I really don't.
yeah, but
I
that's
think I was
because,
high.
yeah, but that's because you just enter this like trance. It's a trance-like state. You just like turn your brain off.
Yeah.
It's like autopilot. But like regarding the Kuva Liches thing, it's just, I think calling it inspired by Shadow of War would be a fucking insult, because it's nothing like that. It's like, if you want to say it's inspired, you have to actually like take what was good about the system and like actually transform it to be even better. But I don't know how the Lich system took the really fun parts of the Kingpin system in Shadow of War and just threw them all out the window and kept the really, really shitty parts. Like, I'm actually impressed that they did that.
Probably because they're using Liches as a way to get people to invest more time into the game, artificially creating an illusion of content.
The thing is, I can kind of see where they were going with the whole. I think if Liches were implemented really well, they could kind of be an endgame. But because of the whole Murmur farm and like all that shit, it's so far from doing it. And again, this is something I talked about earlier, which is that first impressions matter. Like a lot of DE's development philosophy is release something super fucking broken and then like iterate on it
eventually.
Yeah, and that's not really a good way to go about it, because here's the thing. Like, remember I said like the 20-30 people who quit my raid team?
Yeah.
Like, how they left wasn't like all together. They didn't all say, yeah, fuck it, raids are gone. They were like, yeah, I'll give Warframe the benefit of doubt. Maybe they'll continue making interesting stuff that we can play together. And how they all left was attrition, because a shitty update would come out and they would be just like, fuck this, I'm never playing again. And that happened like multiple times. That's how the veteran player base dies out. It's not just one sweep where people are like, fuck this. It's multiple, like, it's like bang, bang, bang. You know, multiple times where you get let down and you're just like, you know, whatever. This is the last time I'm logging in.
Out of curiosity, how many people do you know just instantly quit when Liches just came out?
You know what's the really sad thing?
What?
There weren't people left to quit. Everyone I knew who was really into the game had already quit by the time Liches came out. That's how bad it is.
They found something worse than Liches? What was it, Fortuna?
I don't know. It's just like attrition over the years. And I think that's really how a lot of the veteran player base dies out. It's just like one day you decide to stop playing and then you just stop playing forever. That's kind of really how a lot of veterans see the game. If you go and ask them, they just like one day they are just like, yeah, maybe one day I'll log in again just to check out something, and then they never do. And I think, like I said, first impressions matter, because a lot of these updates are so bad at the start that they just drive players away. That
just
sometimes never come back. And it's depressing.
I find it amusing how pulling an Iflin has kind of become a meme now. Like, alright guys, I'm quitting Warframe. If you want to keep watching my channel, I appreciate that, but from now on, I'm just going to move on to another game.
Oh, man.
And you do that. It doesn't work out. And Warframe, like, a year or so later, and everyone's like, oh yeah, we expected this. You're like the person who've done this.
Okay, here's the thing I will say about making Warframe content. And I think I've kind of seen the writing on the wall, and like, I'm making a conscious effort to try and not make Warframe only content in the future. The thing about Warframe audience, especially the Warframe audience, is very, I don't know whether loyal is the right word, but when people subscribe to you for Warframe content, most of them only want to watch Warframe content. So like when you
I think the word you're looking for is fanatical.
Yeah, maybe. But like when you make a Warframe like only kind of channel, like you're kind of just stuck in there forever. Like the Iflin, the worst thing about the Iflin situation is that he's not the first. Like I think the first was Mogamu. Like I know
he's done it like 4 times.
I know Mogamu quitting Warframe is such a fucking meme at this point. But
yeah. in
a way I empathize with Mogamu, because I kind of understand what his suffering is. I've already experienced it on a much smaller scale. And that is like, I can put out like a shitty, low effort, 0 effort Warframe video today, right? And you'll get like 100k views overall over time. Yep. You know, easy money in the context of things. Whereas like I put out a Destiny video that I spent weeks editing, less than 10k views. You know, I'm not saying that I blame my viewers for not wanting to watch what they subscribe for, but it's just that, you know, there is this kind of like Warframe trap that a lot of content creators walk themselves into, where they get tired of the game and they want to move on to more interesting or creative endeavors, and their viewer base won't let them. Like, Iflin came crawling back to Warframe because there was no views in whatever else he was doing. And that's depressing because it just says that, you know,
Yeah,
people aren't watching him for him. They're watching him for Warframe.
Yeah, the same thing is applied to like basically every single person who has quit Warframe and come back, including myself. Like, off the top of my head, the only person I can think of who can kind of pull off making other video game content is Quiet Shy, just because she has the popularity for it.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. You need to build. I think that's something I'm trying to work towards as well. I know this is kind of veering away from Warframe, but like, you need to get to the point where, you know, you have this critical mass that is willing to support you for what you do rather than what you're making.
That's impossible, because honestly, most people just watch Warframe content for builds and shit. They
Yeah,
don't really
but-
care about personality.
But that's kind of like a YouTube meta problem than Warframe, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. What else were we talking about? I
Railjack
don't
a little bit.
I don't want to go too deep into the whole like YouTube meta. It's very depressing. Railjack, yeah. I think one of the things we were talking about Railjack is that Railjack was like advertised as like a bridge between worlds. Like, I think at TennoCon they showed it like as a bridge between, was it Obvalis and the
Yeah, like you were just doing stuff in Fortuna, then you hop in your Railjack and you go to outer space.
like,
and
yeah,
you-
that
it's a Kuvalich.
that would obviously be like the fucking dream. Like, yeah, sure, I'd like to have that fantasy when I jerk myself off at night as well, where I can like, there's a seamless transition between worlds where I can like do a mission on Earth, hop in my Railjack, go to Pluto and like do another mission seamlessly.
Yeah, we're gonna.
But
we're
that's
gonna get that one.
never happening.
No, it will happen when they rework Railjack for the 4th time in 2027.
No, but I don't think it's going to happen just because of like the way that the game is structured. Like, if the whole like peer-to-peer like instancing system keeps up, it's never going to happen just because the infrastructure just won't support it. Like, but like I said, like, I think one of the reasons why Railjack was so disappointing, it was like it was touted as this kind of like bridge between worlds, but what we got was an island. The
Yeah,
complete
they basically pulled
opposite.
a No Man's Sky, where the trailer's like, holy shit, this is massive, but in reality, it's like, yeah, it's as wide as an ocean, but it's about as deep as a puddle.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, like, No Man's Sky is actually kind of fun now. I've been playing it recently.
Yeah, it leveled out eventually because they patched it over years,
Yeah.
but that doesn't exactly excuse, oh, it was shit on release.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Destiny, the first Destiny, on launch, it was a fucking shit show, but everyone was like, oh, it's fine. They promised like 2 DLCs later down the line, which is kind of stupid because promising to fix stuff later doesn't excuse having a bad product now.
I
And
mean,
don't
yeah.
know why people believe that.
Destiny 2's launch was also equally bad. Like, there's an in community joke about how Destiny's lifespan is basically have a really shitty release, have 2 really bad DLCs, and then have this massive DLC that redeems the whole game. That's that's basically how Destiny 1 played out, like the redemption being Taken King, and that's how Destiny 2 played out, with the redemption being Forsaken. Like,
Yeah, I've heard Forsaken was amazing.
Forsaken was really good. Like, but yeah, that's the kind of thing. Like, you know, I think I was saying earlier, the state of gaming is kind of like depressing because like if you want a game to be good, you often like just don't play it when it releases. You wait like a few years, wait for everything to get ironed out, and then like you enjoy a really complete game. But also regarding the whole like depressing state of like gaming, it's like in a world where Bethesda, EA, and Activision are like falling over each other to be literally electronic Satan. You know, you don't have to be a very good developer to do well. You just have to not be horrible. I think that's why.
Or just don't be Blizzard.
And I think that's one of the reasons why DE does so well. Like, compared to some of these schmucks, DE looks like a fucking saint.
Yeah.
And like, like DE does a lot of things well, but they also do a lot of bad things. It's just that a lot of it is nullified by the good reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Or not really good reputation. It's like, how to say, you're not the worst. And that's kind of how being good in modern gaming is. Just don't be the worst. And
don't be Blizzard, don't be Bethesda, etc., etc.
like I was saying regarding your what's it called, the chat moderator video thing,
Yep.
the drama thing, I think one of the reasons why DE has done so well is because they are really good at PR. Like if Warframe had a really bad PR head, like props to Rebecca, I think her back is probably broken from the amount of carrying she's done for this game. But seriously, like Warframe's PR is insane, because like they are like Tai Chi masters. They are very good at preventing bad press in the overall sphere of things. Like if a piece of drama takes place within the sphere of Warframe, it doesn't really matter to them. But if it leaks outside that sphere and like people are giving something a bad review in like the wider internet, like how Jim Sterling did it, instant change. Like Jim Sterling complained about not having Prime accessories. There you go. It just happens.
But it's kind of stupid, because that was actually one of the points I brought up in the follow-up video I made in my chat moderator video, which is why do we have to bring in popular people just to see changes made to the game? We shouldn't have to do that, because you have the forums, you have the subreddit, you have the design council, you have Twitter if you want to, you even have the partner program. Yet they're kind of throwing that all away just for what one popular guy says on YouTube who barely plays the game to begin with. So it's like, what's the point of fucking providing feedback then?
Yeah, like I said, because it's about PR. It's kind of like if something's a PR disaster, they will do something about it immediately. If it's not, it's whatever. We'll address it when we feel like we can. And like I think that was something I was talking about earlier, which is the way DE handles feedback. Because to their credit, they do listen to feedback, but the question is when.
Also very selectively.
Yeah, like I mean, like to give DE credit, like they sometimes do listen to feedback, but it sometimes takes 1 to 2 years to get something through. Like I was telling you earlier about the
vacuum.
Yeah, not just that, but like when I know like this sounds super self-important, but like when I joined the partner server, I thought like, oh, I can make a difference. I have a direct line to the developers. Yeah, extremely naive now that, looking back. But at the time, I had that kind of mentality. And I think I joined back when Planes was about to come out. And so I was like, after watching the dev stream where they showed off Planes, I was like, hey, that whole system where the Archwings use charges looks very clunky. Like, can we just have a system where you press one button, it's infinite charges, and like you don't have to like worry about using fish oil or whatever. And I remember Rebecca was like, yeah, this is an intended gameplay mechanic. I mean, not to fault Rebecca, because for the most part she doesn't really have power over like what actually goes into the game. But I remember then after like 2 years later, they were like, hey, we have done a bunch of quality of life changes to the planes. One of them is Archwing charges are now infinite. And I'm just like, yeah, we could have avoided all that shit. Just if on that day you were like, yeah, that's a silly thing. Why is it charges? Just make it infinite to start with.
Because they didn't exactly future-proof planes in a way.
Yeah, but like that's kind of, I know it sounds very self-important to think that, I could have had a change, but that's how I felt about it at that time. It's just, why do things somehow have to take years to get through? Like Universal Vacuum as well. Like, it was such a fucking like contention point for like 2 to 3 years before they actually compromised on it. With like, and it's not even true Universal Vacuum, it's a mod. So it's still kind of a band-aid.
And
But-
every single time they said no. They never even really gave a reason why. They just said no.
Yeah, it's just like, why do we have to fight tooth and nail over things like this? It's nonsensical. Just, sometimes why don't we just let common sense have the rule of the day?
Because common sense isn't so common.
It's infuriating sometimes. But yeah, it's a bit weird doing this all over again, because like just now I was like constantly like cycling through topics, but now that I've kind of like vented all the energy, I forgot what I was gonna talk about.
Just remind yourself of something raid related and just get pissed off again.
I'm too tired to be pissed off about raids. To be completely honest with you, it's just like I said, the time has come and gone. It's like, Railjack is such a mess right now. I don't think Warframe needs raids, at least not in the current state it's in. Cause like, Railjack is such a mess. I'd rather they like iron out and fix Railjack to like function properly and actually be a fun game mode before even trying to make a raid on it. Because like, it feels like if you want to make a raid in Railjack, you're repeating the sins of Jorda's Verdict all over again. One of the reasons why Jorda's Verdict was so hated by players was because it wasn't really Warframe. You weren't really playing Warframe. Like, half of it was Outwing, which people fucking hated. And the whole ground-air transition aspect of it was 80% of why the game broke. Like, sometimes you go into the nerf and then like something breaks because of something that's happening outside, or like God knows what. Like, Jorda's Verdict was such a spaghetti code mess that like the meta was figuring out like what's the bug of the week. Like, oh, this week the flaw in Law of Retribution is missing, and you just fall into the fucking void. Like, or like, oh, this week the tritium battery charges 5 times faster, which like instantly blows up in your hands. Of course, like the speedrun community had a fucking field day, because like I think that was when the world record was set, 8 minutes I think. Just because like having a supercharged battery could shave off like 1 or 2 minutes off your run. It's insane. But yeah, the point is, back then the raid meta wasn't really so much knowing what to do. It was, what is the bug of the week that we can either exploit or we should avoid. And I think that kind of applies to Railjack as well, because like I don't want to have a Railjack raid where I'm like, hey guys, what's broken this week? Which part of my Railjack has just disappeared into the fucking void of space? I don't want that to be the experience. Like, I'd rather have Railjack, iron it out completely, make it a fun experience, then talk about raids. Because if you bring back raids and it's scuffed, then like raid veterans will just be like, I waited 2 years for this. And they'll like,
exactly what everyone said when Kuvala just came out.
Yeah, and like talking about like bringing raids back, like I brought up the, what's it called? ESO, Elite Sanctuary Onslaught, which was initially branded as, oh, we are bringing back Dark Sectors, and then plot twist, it was nothing like Dark Sectors. And that's always been a nagging fear in the back of my mind, which is that if they were like, hey, we are bringing back Dark Sectors, and not really, the same thing can apply to raids as well. Like, it could be something completely not raid-like. And I'm not saying that like there's really a lot of things in the old raid design that were worth keeping, because like honestly, Warframe's raid design was fucking awful. But at the same time, it's like, is the new raid just gonna be 2 groups of 4 players with squad link? Because that's not a real raid. Even in a raid like Destiny's Last Wish, where you split into 2 teams of 3, you eventually meet together in the central room for a DPS phase. You're not like permanently split into 2 teams, because that's not really a raid. But I feel like a lot of people, me included, are very pessimistic and cynical about raids, because there's a 90% chance it won't be 8 players. It's just going to be like squad link.
2 teams of 4.
Yeah, and it's gonna suck because like one thing I was complaining about, another thing, like it's all interconnected. That's something that pisses me off so much, is that Warframe has not innovated on its matchmaking in 8 years. Like for a co-op game, they are still using the ancient peer-to-peer system that they were using since beta. And like, yeah, you know, the peer-to-peer system made sense back when Warframe was a small indie dev game where, you know, they didn't have money for servers. Like, yeah, it made sense back then, but like, you'd think with the amount of money they're making, what, 27 million estimated in last year? I don't know how accurate that number is, but I'm sure they have a bit of money to like try to innovate on the matchmaking, especially like in a world where, you know, online gaming is such a big deal. You'd think they would put more effort into trying to make matchmaking more streamlined.
I think people from like the smaller regions like Oceania and Asia, they prefer peer-to-peer over servers because the smaller regions have to end up playing with each other. There's not many people online, so queue times are usually longer. So they prefer lagging if it means they can just hop in and find a game. Then again, that's just me.
I mean, like, I can see the value in peer-to-peer, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know why they haven't tried to innovate at all, you know? They could kind of use a hybrid system. I know Destiny kind of uses a hybrid system where it's kind of peer-to-peer, but there's also a central server, especially for things like PvP. So, like, instead of one host having like 0 ping and like killing everyone without lag, like everyone kind of lags a little bit, but it's kind of fair in that sense. It's not perfect. Like Destiny 2 PvP is a complete shit show at times, but
Oh, I've heard.
it's something. I'm just saying it's something. Like raids are also on a server, so it's not like if your fucking host computer crashes, the whole raid is gone. And they have a checkpoint system as well, which is awesome. But yeah. Yeah, this podcast is a bit awkward now because like there was so many things that I was talking about just now, and like I kind of like I vented all the energy, and like now I have Alzheimer's. I don't remember what I was talking about. What else?
It was moving on. It was a little bit. I think we touched a little bit on the partner program before. I don't remember, but it was mostly Riven's raids, Kuva's Liches, Railjack, and that was the gist of it, I want to say.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Warframe is just in a very depressing state right now, where there's so, like I said, like I abandoned the scripts because I felt like at a certain point it felt like it could go into a 10-hour video, just because everything is so interlinked, and like a lot of the problems can't be solved just because some of the things are so entrenched in what is already existing in the game. Like if someone once asked me in the Discord DMs, they were like, how would you fix Rivens? And I'm just like, I don't know, get a time machine and like either go back and stop them from making them entirely, or go back and sort out the mod system first, then you go and like make Rivens as a capstone. Cause like
the mods, the mod system itself is a fucking shit show. Like some augments are like broken mandatory, like the new Baruch augment that just came out,
Yeah.
which is nuts. And there are other ones that you can just basically ignore, like that one Ripline augment for Valkyrie that makes it like if you cast it into air, it's for free or some dumb shit like that.
Yeah, no, I don't know, like, I think the mod system in Warframe is a very good idea, but I think because of the meta that has, like, solidified over the years, you feel like a lot of mods are mandatory. And, like, now, let's say, like, again, like, you can't discuss things like Serration without factoring in Rivens. Because, like, some people are like, why doesn't DE just get rid of Serration? Which is basically a mandatory mod, except for very, very niche builds like the chroma with the, what's it called, Island Hunting Rubico, because Vex armor is actually similar to serration, so you don't want serration because it's just additive. But anyway, the point is, the thing about serration is serration. A lot of people say, why can't you just delete serration and give all guns a 165% damage buff? And the problem with that is that because Rivens exist, Rivens have kind of locked in the meta of the game. Because like if you remove serration, give everything a 165% damage buff, now a Riven with increased damage or heavy caliber is actually a huge deal because it's no longer additive with the bonus, it's multiplicative, and that's really a balancing nightmare, which again, you need a time machine. You need to go back, fix all that shit before you introduce Rivens. I think I like the concept of Rivens, but it's just the way they were introduced was just completely wrong.
I'm convinced like the reason they don't give us an ability to like lock in a specific stat on a Riven to like get the dream Riven is because it would insanely fuck over the Riven economy.
It would.
Yeah, you could buy like a trash Riven, but with a really, really good stat, like something really, really fucking bad, like plus 100% recoil, minus 90% magazine capacity, but like plus 250% crit chance. Lock that one in and re-roll the other ones, and go on and so forth until you get a Riven you can sell for like over 8,000 platinum, which some idiot would buy.
No, but here's the thing. I don't really think that would be how it would turn out, because at least the reason why they prevented any determinism of Riven rolling is because they said it would devalue the market. They are really profiting off this god roll system, because God knows they are. Like Riven's fetching like few thousand plat each if you are really good with a roll. And here's the thing, I did propose this system of Riven rolling, which should be, instead, every time you roll a Riven, you can lock one or more stats. And per stat you lock in, you pay an extra Kuva fee. So let's say like the base reroll cost is 3,500, right?
Yeah.
If you lock in a stat, it costs you like, 2,500 more, so 6,000 per roll. But you keep that roll. You can lock two stats, but now it's like 7,000 extra or something. It would get exponentially more expensive. This is kind of inspired by crafting in Path of Exile, where you can lock certain stats. Like you can pay Exalted Orbs, which are very expensive currency items, to lock certain stats. So let's say you have an item in Path of Exile that has 3 suffixes that you really, really like. They're all god tier suffixes. But you want to reroll the item without fucking those 3 stats up. You can craft this item saying prefixes or suffixes, whatever I was talking about, cannot be changed. And then you just roll the item and those things won't change. So you're basically paying a crafting fee up front to give more determinism to your, final roll. And I think that's a fair compromise because, if you made a system where I could pay more Kuva to lock certain stats, I would happily participate in a system like that because it would give more determinism in what I wanted, rather than every time I'm doing a fresh roll. But, I feel like that wouldn't necessarily like cause the market to go into a tailspin in terms of like everything. I think we would see more god roll Rivens, and that would actually help the market stop being so centralized, because right now it's controlled by a very, very small handful of people. Like if more people can get good rolls, I think the market will actually like widen up. Like things will actually stop being so expensive. Cause
that term alone is just something I hate. Like every single time I hop in the trade chat, there's always one person like willing to sell godly Riven for full man 5,000 platinum.
Yeah.
Or some dumb shit like that.
I filtered the word god
term
out of my trade chat.
Yeah.
I still remember when Rivens first came out. There was some guy like, I want to sell God Roll Dread Riven 3,000 plat, and then I clicked on the link and it was -slash. I'm like,
Really?
yeah, okay, I believe you. But yeah, that's. I think Rivens, like. Again, I'm not an economist, so I don't know whether it could go either way. It could like completely fuck up the market one way or fuck up the other way. But I think giving some kind of determinism to rolling would be a huge step in the right direction. Just because like even if you look at Destiny, which has like a whole random roll system for guns, right? One of the reasons why some of the recent Destiny 2 expansions were fun is because there was determinism. Like, sure, all the guns have random rolls. They can roll different perks. So, you know, obviously you want the gun with like your favorite perks all lined up. But the thing is, with most of these expansions, you can actually target farm the gun you want. So, like, I think Season of Opulence, there was this thing called the Menagerie, where you can slot in like runes into this thing, a chalice, and it would guarantee a certain weapon or armor based on what you put in. And that was a big deal because like now you still have to deal with the random roll bullshit, but certain stats are locked in. So now like your farming experience isn't complete RNG hell, but you go through like 10 layers of RNG. You know, you eliminate certain layers of RNG and it becomes a lot easier to farm for what you want. And it gives the player more agency. Whereas with Kuva rolling right now, it's just, yeah, I'm just gonna hit that stupid pachinko lever and see whether I get lucky.
And speaking of crafting, if there's any like crafting / upgrading system that I really enjoyed, even though it's obscure as fuck, it's the upgrading system from a really old RPG I used to play called Continent of the Ninth Seal, where the way it worked is that any weapon, armor, or accessory in the game, you could upgrade it all the way to +20. But the catch is, every single time you upgrade it, the risk of it failing increases, meaning you could get like a +15 weapon, but it could fail at +16, which would break the weapon entirely, and any enchantments and shit in it would be gone forever. However, there were counters to that, like you could grind a lot or spend a stupid amount of money to get materials which would either not guarantee but prevent you from losing your stuff if it failed, or slightly increasing your chances of it succeeding or something like that. Which, yeah, it sounds stupid grinding just for upgrading one item, but it will give players an incentive to, hey, you want the best fucking shit in the game, you better be ready to spend hours grinding just for upgrading materials.
Yeah,
I think that was a huge metagame.
I think I experienced that in some like shitty like Korean RPG when I was like really young.
Yeah.
I think it was a pretty common practice back in the early days of the internet. I think about 10 plus years ago, like it was pretty commonplace to see RPGs with a system like that, where you can upgrade your weapon, but you get an increasing chance to fail every time, every tier, and you could pay like currency or materials to like prevent it. I didn't really necessarily like that system because like it was very pay to win. At least most iterations of it were. But I don't necessarily think that would be a good addition to Warframe, but I do think that, yeah, we can at least agree on a common ground that, you know, some kind of crafting determinism in Warframe would be nice.
Yeah, obviously it wouldn't be good for Warframe because we already have Rivens. Add that to Rivens and shit would be broken.
Yeah, but the thing is, Rivens are already so fucking broken. Like you've already gone down that path. You can't like get out anymore. So like, if you really want to make it an endgame kind of element where you're like really committing to a certain kind of build, you know, sure, let people commit to that build rather than just be a completely random roll every time. That's all I'm saying. Like, I remember back then I farmed like there was a double drop weekend really long ago, and I bought a booster and I got 4 times, and I farmed like 1 million or so Kuva. And then I just spent them all on my Rivens, and I got nothing good. That was the day I just quit Rivens entirely, or rather I quit Kuva rolling entirely, because I was just like, I'm not spending my life rolling something when there's like no semblance of like, and I get that's gambling, right? But there's no guaranteed return. You could just waste hours of your life and get nothing for it. And like, that's insane, because like, at least in other games you get some kind of consolation prize. In Warframe, it's just like you could gamble away a few million Kuva and like get nothing good. And that's insane. Like, why is your success in crafting something good completely RNG and lottery based?
Because time spent playing equals. It was something I touched on before, but basically, time spent playing equals the illusion of you're doing something, even though you're really not.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that I talked about in the script that I abandoned as well, which is basically, you shouldn't have a game where you aim to make players play as long as possible. You should have a game that makes the player feel like they spent their time meaningfully. I'd rather play 1 hour of a game that makes me feel like I spent my time meaningfully, like I did everything I wanted to do on my agenda list, rather than spend like 3 to 5 hours aimlessly doing some grind in a game where there's a chance I could not get anything that I wanted in the first place. It's just
that's kind of why I really want scaling rewards to be a thing, because besides just flex rights, there really isn't much point to going over an hour in something like survival. If it gave, like, let's say past an hour or something, it starts giving you like vaulted relics or fucking Vitus essence for whatever reason, just something that makes going over an hour worth it, I would. But there is no point to going over an hour, unless you just want to like set a record or something.
Yeah, but I think DE is like, again, like this goes back to the point you were saying earlier about DE doesn't really know what the hell they want to do. They just kind of like go in Hitler's chicken direction sometimes.
Basically.
But like DE's position on quote unquote endurance endgame has changed, like seesawed over the years.
Yep.
Like back then it was like T4 Orokin survival. And then like they changed the relic system and then everything, and then like ESO seemed to be the new endurance thing, but then they made it so that there's no reason to go past 8 waves in ESO. The rewards are the same and you just make your life more difficult. So why do 16 waves and deal with like increased efficiency drain and like higher skill enemies when you can just do 2 rounds of 8?
Yeah, remember when relics were supposed to decrease the void grind?
Yeah, that never really worked out. Like, I think I saw the writing on the wall when they first came out. It was just like, yeah, sure, it's a good idea on paper, but like, have you noticed that in 2 years, you'll have an insane amount of relics in the game? It's so fucking bloated. Like, now, when I want to like find the relic for something that I want to farm, I have to like go look up the fucking spreadsheet to what relic for what item. I feel like an old man looking through an encyclopedia. It's insane.
I mean, the search bar in the relic menu, it does help.
Yeah, it helps, but at the same time, it's just so bloated. And it's only going to get worse over the years. Like, I think in like 2 years, we're going to have like a few thousand relics in the game. It's going to be insane. But I think, like I said, like, that's the thing about endurance. Like, I think a lot of people thought that endurance was kind of like the metric of difficulty, and then like hostile mergers. I could complain about that one for days. That was what I was complaining about, hostile mergers. I'll talk about it later. But when after hostile mergers came out, I think DE like finally woke up. They were like, yeah, we're never doing any endurance related content ever again. If anything, like, I think hostile mergers was an unofficial nail in the coffin for endurance content. Like, that was the day that everyone realized that DE was not capable or competent enough and would never consider making any kind of endurance run ever again. Like,
probably because they don't do any endurance stuff themselves. Like,
it's not just that.
Go to like any DE stream ever. Like when they first showed off Plains of Eidolon and like TennoCon 2016, 2017, I forgot where it was. They always play on dev mode. So whenever they say something like, yeah, this is durable, it's because they're playing on dev mode, when in reality they'd be killed like 5 times over.
Yeah, the first Railjack stream, holy shit. I think they would have died like 5-6 times.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and I mean, I don't think it's just because the devs don't play it. It's because the game is so broken that there's so many things you can exploit to counter enemy scaling. And like, endless rewards. But, I think, I don't know. I feel like after hostile mergers, they were like their tone shifted completely. Because I remember being on the I don't know whether I was still on the server at the time. I think I was. Basically they were like, yeah, our metric for difficulty is no longer endurance runs. I vaguely remember one of the staff members telling that to me. And I was just like, why the U-turn in policy? You've been trying to appeal to the endless people for years, and now you just U-turn. And I don't blame them. Like, I think they finally woke up to realize that, yeah, you know, endless farming is kind of stupid, at least for a metric of difficulty. But I think that was also, it's just like you were saying, DE doesn't really know what they're doing sometimes. They just like flutter from one concept to the other. And they sometimes seesaw between like their stance on things. You know, and it's partially because they treat every new update as their baby. They just like, oh, this is our precious baby. We're gonna do whatever we can to shove it down your throats until we have a new baby, and then we'll throw this baby in the dumpster and like not touch it for 2 years.
Jesus, it's fucked up because I've actually seen a clip of a baby in a trash bag in a dumpster.
Yeah, but that's what it feels like. It's like sometimes they don't polish things properly, and then they just like move on to their next big project, and then things just like get left in the dirt for like 2 years. And then like anytime something gets reworked, it's probably because the prime is either getting unvaulted or something like that. It's very cynical, I'm sorry, but that's kind of how it is. You know.
Yeah, I remember when they reworked Zephyr right before her prime came out, and all they did was just like tweak 2 abilities and give her a new one.
Yeah, but Zephyr still sucks now. Like, yeah, sure,
No,
you can use her for Jetstream.
She's like okay now.
Yeah, but you can just use her.
So I don't know.
People still use her mostly for Jetstream. Let's be honest. Like, people don't really use her for anything else. Because Jetstream is like the real like efficient like team ability. It actually helps. Like, yeah, tornadoes are cool, but like people don't like it when like you throw enemies all over the place. It just makes things harder to clean up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like hostile mergers. Oh boy. Like, I think hostile mergers was really a wake-up call, not just for like Warframe, but the community as a whole. Because like hostile mergers was such a shit show. Not just because like it proved that DE is never going to be capable of making any kind of competitive event, PvE wise, but it also proved that like, you know, it finally sent the message to DE that endless scaling is stupid. And I hope that, you know, they will make content in the future that isn't just like, let's turn up the dial on enemies and give Railjack enemies 16 times the health. Like,
I remember that. Somebody actually did the math on that, and that patch after the said where they like halved the armor for like every single enemy in Railjack.
yeah, they increased the
increased
EHP.
the health, but like it was like 20%.
Yeah, it was
like
20% more EHP, I think. That was the math.
And they also nerfed the
Crycophon or whatever. Yeah.
yeah the one shotgun Railjack weapon. So it's like, why is this trying to be a sniper now? It's supposed to be a shotgun.
Yeah, the thing I don't understand about Railjack is that like nowadays with most of the Railjack updates, they are like actively making it worse. They've hit intrinsic farming like 2 to 3 times at this point.
Yep.
And it's just like, why are you alienating the few people who are still playing the game mode? Like, if anything, you should be trying to like, you know, sugar them up and like give them a reason to play more. But like, no, you're just driving these people away by like making life more and more difficult for them. Like, are you insane? There are already so few people playing Railjack. Like, why are you making it worse?
When Railjack came out, there were really only like 4 reasons why people cared about it. 1, for farming the 10 Ember Sephimera, which was rare as fuck, and I'm glad they changed it because that was annoying.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good change.
Farming the Shedu, which, I mean, it's a good weapon, but I'm not a fan because I think it's kind of boring. Farming a Vital Reactor, which had like a fucking 2% drop rate on release, which was stupid. They buffed it to be like 4 now, but I don't really care. And last thing that people really gave a shit about Railjack for was farming intrinsics, because that, besides like giving mastery rank, it also like prepares their Railjack for command.
Future proofing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when they found out that you could farm intrinsics with Ivara, like fucking 7 different people made a video on how to farm it, and then everyone did it, and they patched it out like days later, but it was too late by then.
Yeah. Oh man, I could talk about exploiting, like the whole exploit thing again. Like, but I'll talk a bit more about hostile mergers first. Like, hostile mergers was such a shit show because, like, I think it was DE made these enemies in a like permanently scaling endurance competitive game mode that were like at a certain point just impervious to even god roll Riven fire. And then players were like, yeah, okay, we'll counter your bullshit with bullshit. We'll use Loki to switch teleport enemies into death pits. And DE was just like, surprise Pikachu? How dare you use bullshit to counter our bullshit? And it's just like,
I mean, you
what
kind
did
of
you
have to at
expect?
some point.
Yeah, but like, what do you expect? Like, when you make, then that's kind of my argument against infinite scaling as well. It's like when you make it a numbers game, it stops being a game. It stops being fun or interactive. It's just how do I cheese the game to counter the bullshit? You know?
That's actually, that reminds me of something. I would legitimately pay money to watch Steve, Scott, Rebecca, and Megan all play anywhere where enemies are at least level 60 or against a level 5 Kuvelich without developer mode and without like any outsider help, just to see if they actually understand how bullshit the game can be.
The thing is, I think Rebecca would carry them. Because I think Rebecca kind of understands what's meta, at least to a certain degree.
But at the same time, Rebecca thinks that Nyx is still good, so that's debatable.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I mean, like, obviously, if you put some other people into really uncomfortable situations, I won't say who, but you know, you will definitely see some hilarious shenanigans.
Yeah.
Because like some of the developers obviously don't play their game, or like play their game with a certain very, very limited sample size to change the fate of an entire game mode. Excavation. Excuse me. What was I saying?
Sidetrack here, but it's an unofficial rule in my Discord server that instead of a bruh moment, we say DE Glenn moment.
Yeah. I think that's still a very sore point in a lot of people's, like that whole one sample size with super Mumex players. Okay, let's nerf excavation.
Yeah. If you look at the port side channel on my Discord right now, you'll see one of the images is some guy in chat said, "What the fuck, DE? Fix your fucking glitch spawns."
Yeah, I saw the
But
Gara.
DE Glenn's in his squad too. It's like
Awkward.
Oh, it's awkward.
But what was the other thing I wanted to talk about? All right, exploiting. Yes. Yeah. So
Yeah, Noob Showtech is rolling over in his grave right now.
yeah, I don't know. Like I was saying earlier, basically, the topic of exploiting is it's a very like gray area in Warframe. Because like every time I make an exploit related video, I have to ask myself, is this the last time I'm making a Warframe video? You know,
Nah.
Yeah, we can joke about it, but you know, it's a genuine concern that goes through my head because it's like I don't know when I'm gonna step on a landmine. Like I know that Noob Showtech took one for the team, and like he showed us that if there's one landmine you should never step on, is never eat into Warframes, like anything monetary sale related. Don't eat into their booster sales, because that was the fatal mistake Showtech made. I mean, obviously there's the whole thing that he was warned beforehand supposedly,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Like, I feel like if I was expelled from the partner program without any warning beforehand, while certain other partners can get away with murder on a weekly basis, you know, I'm in danger. Yeah. I feel like I could get banned without warning sometimes. And I think that's kind of a fear that content creators shouldn't have, because like when I look at exploits in the context of Warframe, like for me it's all about fun, right? I'm sure like some other people could use exploits or like bugs maliciously or like to farm like insane amount of credits. But for me, I sometimes see myself as like a bit of like a, you know, insane mad scientist historian, where like there was this time where this thing broke in Warframe and it led to these hilarious moments. Like I want to archive that because that's fun, it's memories, and it's history, you know. And every time I make a video like that, I'm like, am I gonna get into trouble? And the answer is we shouldn't, because, you know, like if you look at certain other games like Bungie, like Destiny 2, like a lot of people give Destiny shit. You know, I know Destiny is a bit of a meme in the Warframe community, but one thing that I really admire about Destiny 2 is the fact that Bungie are really fucking cool when it comes to exploits. Like, sometimes an exploit comes out, you know, Bungie doesn't just say, hey, fuck you guys, how dare you exploit my game, banhammer for all of you. They're cool about it. They're like, yeah, you know, we acknowledge, we take responsibility as developers. We realize that this exploit came about as a result of our oversight, and we'll let you have fun with it for a certain amount of time. And sometimes they've even featured, you know, the fun exploits on their This Week at Bungie. It's kind of like a weekly newsletter where they talk about what's going on. You know, they sometimes feature it. They give it its time of day. I mean, eventually they have to nerf these things, but they aren't immature about it and be like, how dare you take advantage of our oversight. They're like, yeah, this is cool. We respect you. You know. And I think Warframe is just the complete opposite sometimes.
You can just do what I do, and every single time I come up with like some sort of video idea, and I even get the slightest hint of an idea that it's something that DE could ban me for, I just like immediately hit up DE Taylor on Discord and I ask her like, hey, is this bannable? And I screenshot literally every single thing she says. That way, in case they pull some bullshit later, like, oh yeah, it's bannable, I can just pull them out on it. Like, no, you told me I could.
No, but that's the thing.
Ever since the chat moderator video, I literally screenshot every single thing they tell me, just so I can have something as reference. Because the one time I've like ever actually been afraid over what could happen to my account was the day they replied to me on Twitter, because I remember it happened when I was still in Japan. I got woken up at like 3 in the morning by my phone just getting blown up with Twitter notifications. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I turn on my phone, and my heart stops for like literally like 10 seconds because Rebecca, Megan, Scott, and
yeah,
Pablo
it was a gangbang in there.
They all replied to me within literally 30 seconds of each other with that whole personal attack bullshit, and I'm like, oh, here we go. But then I slept it off. I'm like, oh god, I'm probably gonna get banned for this shit. I slept it off, wake up, and I see like everyone on Twitter is fucking reaming them. I'm like, oh, I gotta make a response. It's gonna be fucking amazing. And besides that passive aggressive threat they sent me through email, I don't really think I've ever felt that I could actually get banned, because, at least in my opinion, their policy of, is this exploit or material considered bannable offense? I think their policy is fair, but at the same time, it's really fucking vague.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Like, my argument to that is basically, why should we have to live in fear every time we make something that might be remotely considered risky? We have to, like, you know, look over our shoulders. In your case, you have to, you know, confirm through, like, official channels whether or not something is kosher. Like, that's insane to me. Like, why do we have to live in fear of making something that is really about having fun in a game? You know, that's my point. Like, we shouldn't have to look over our shoulders constantly.
Probably because you could end up being the next Noob Showtech, who his account was literally thousands of hours worth of gameplay, which was gone in like a day, and literally ever since he got banned, he hasn't like tweeted once or even made a video. He just completely abandoned his channel. Yeah,
I mean, I get comments on my exploit videos a lot of the time where it's like, how is Noob Showtech banned and not you? And my honest answer is, I don't fucking know. Like, sometimes I expect to get banned for something. Like, I was like, how was I not banned like 3 videos ago? You know? If
it works, don't question it.
But that's the thing. Like, okay, here's the thing. I don't really have a good relationship with Warframe, at least with DE, because of like the whole partnership thing.
Yeah.
Which I will say, you know, if you want to discipline me because I did something wrong, that's fair, you know. But if you want to discipline people, let's just say you have to be fair about it. You know, you can't just punish someone without any prior warning for one infringement and then let some other partners who you're friends with kind of get away with saying heinous shit on Twitter almost every week. That's just all I'm saying. You gotta be fair, you know. I don't mind taking an ass. I don't mind taking an ass beating, but if you kick my fucking teeth in, and I see this other fucker doing all kinds of horrible shit in the open, and like you just like let him go without a slap on the wrist, like that makes me feel mad. You know, I'm not mad about being punished. I'm mad about being punished while certain other people get away with it. That's all I'm saying.
That's part of the reason why I hope that they like rework the partner program sometime in the future, because we have like so many fucking partners that are either inactive as hell or they cover Warframe like once and then never touch it again, but they're partners for some reason.
Yeah, because DE throws money at big streamers and like YouTubers to like play the game.
That's something I hate though. Like Markiplier made like one Warframe video. Does that qualify him as a partner just because it got like 2 million views?
Yeah, it doesn't, because like he's not invested in the community or the game.
It's fucking stupid.
Like, here's the thing, like the problem with the partner program is it's not really a partner program, it's an affiliate program. It's just like, here, have some free shit and enjoy the game. And honestly, looking back, if I had to give myself advice, I would be just like, take the free shit and go. Just don't even bother interacting with them. Anyone who wants to join the partner program now, take the free shit, live your life. Don't even bother giving them feedback because they don't care. You know, that's my feedback. It's insane, but it's insane and it's depressing, but that's how it is. But regarding the point of exploits and like bans and whatever, it's just, I don't know, I think DE needs to like, you know, again, like you said, it's all very gray area. Like no one really knows what's an offense and what's not an offense. And a lot of bans in the TOS just come down to, we have this line in TOS that says we have the final say on your account. If we feel like banning you, we'll ban you. You know, or we'll like hit you for something very, very vague or some blanket statement. And that's insane. Because like, again, like with the whole hostile mergers thing, like there's no rule that said using Loki is illegal. There was no rule that saying exploiting, you know, death pits is illegal, but it became a rule and people were punished retroactively for it. And that kind of made the whole competitive aspect of it a joke. You know, you can't expect your community to take you seriously when your enforcement of rules is lax or like based on whether you like the person or not. Like, as much as the whole nepotism meme gets thrown around, that's what it is. You know.
Yeah.
Like I remember.
Memes are based on some sort of fact.
I remember when like Quiet Shy made the growing power video, and I was like, I breathed a sigh of relief because I was like, yeah, okay, now I can just make the video. Because if Shy is immune and they punish me, I have grounds for saying what the fuck. You know. But that's also something scary because I do have like 2 videos lined up where it's an exploit and I'm having fun, and I'm trying to script it in such a way that like I tell people, please don't use this for like personal like benefit. I'm just having fun, but at the same time, you know, DE has the grounds to ban me just for saying, hey, how dare you like propagate this exploit amongst the community. And I don't feel like I should have to message Taylor or Rebecca or whoever every time I make a video. I shouldn't have to get implicit approval from the developers to make a video on their game. You know, it's fair use. It's a free market. It's free real estate. You know, I shouldn't have to consult you just to make a video on you. That's insane.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut it off here because it's getting close to midnight and I'm fucking tired.
Yeah.
So, you got any closing remarks for DE?
Yeah. Like I said at the end of the other.
Besides just fixed raids.
Yeah. Okay. My point is this: if anyone from DE is still listening, okay, I'm on your side. I know people think I like to hate on the game, but I genuinely love Warframe. Like, you know, I like the setting, I like the combat, I like a lot of things. It's just that a lot of it is broken right now. And, you know, good things take time. Just take your time. Just don't rush updates just because the content drought. Like, assholes are like, content drought. And then you end up rushing out this half-baked update that drives even more people away. You know, take your time. Good things take time. And I have friends in game development who tell me all kinds of horror stories when it comes to coding or programming. And I understand it's a hard process. My point is just slow down. Don't overpromise shit at TennoCon. Don't like promise 20 other things that will eventually snowball into next year's TennoCon and so on and so forth. Just take your time. Make a good game. That's all I'm saying. You know, good things take time.